You would expect me to be giving a Christmas themed sermon today, but I'm not, because every time I started to think of something, it's how when you wake up in the middle of the night with a story running through your head. And this is the one that was just like all week, actually for the last couple of weeks. And so I found something kind of similar on the internet that, another fellow had a few ideas right along the same the same lines. So you're not getting a Christmas sermon today. However, anybody here like jigsaw puzzles? I remember from childhood that was how we would pass some of those long summer days, hot days in Bakersfield, when it was a little too hot to go outside on the ranch there, and wasn't that much cooler inside the house because all we had was this big old swamp cooler that was up on the second floor. The only place that it kept cool in the house was the stairs. Where it blew down the stairs and it would blow out little bits of water and land on you and stuff, and that felt actually pretty good in there. So, and we didn't have video games. I know it's kind of hard for some people to believe, but there was no such thing as a video game because we didn't even get a TV till I was about 6. It was about 1953. Tells you how old I am. So among other things, I learned to read. Great thing. Now, my grandmother loved puzzles of any kind. And she would do crosswords and, just any kind of a puzzle she could find. But she really loved jigsaw puzzles. And for a while, we actually had a table that was used for nothing else but to do those puzzles. Now, I remember one time Grandma got a jigsaw puzzle that had 1 million pieces. At least it seemed like it to me. And, Granny always said the worst thing about the bigger puzzles was losing one of those pieces. And so one day when Grandma was nearly finished with one of these huge puzzles, the devil got to little Ricky. And I took one of the pieces and hid it. I can still remember Grandma's reaction when she finished the puzzle and the last piece was gone. And as you might expect, she was not a happy camper. She searched all around the table, got to looking, emptying the vacuum cleaner, just all over, under the chairs, all over the floor. And I let it go on for about an hour or so, and then when she was out of the room, I snuck in and, found my piece. And when she wasn't around, I put it in there. Kind of a mean thing to do. But yeah, actually it was kind of funny. So I've done puzzles and stuff. I remember I got this new one time and I poured out all the pieces on the table and looked at it, and you couldn't figure out where to even get started with this thing, so I called Marie, and then she looked at it, and then she looked at the box and she says, you're never going to make that puzzle look like that tiger on the box. So, put all those Frosted Flakes back in the box. And so. But something? Let me talk about puzzles for a little bit. Brought this, and, it's a beautiful picture. It's a Thomas Kinkade painting. And I'm thinking, there's a process you go through. You're going to set the thing out there. You're going to find the edges. You're going to find the corners and things like that. How do you know? What's the first thing you do? You look at that. You look at the picture. What if you didn't have the box? You just have all these pieces, and you don't know what it's supposed to look like in the end. Well, our lives are like that. We don't know. We don't have a clue what we're supposed to look like. And, much of the world is like that right now. The world is wandering along without any kind of a compass, with nothing to tell them. And all of us were like that too before Jesus made himself known to us. Our lives are a puzzle. And it's a puzzle we don't have a picture of. But Jesus does. He does know what he's shaping us into. So puzzles and our lives can be confusing. Puzzles can be frustrating. But puzzles can also be rewarding. Now, what does this have to do with the church? Well, we're kind of like that in the church too. We are all parts of, it's like, it would take God to understand this, but we are a puzzle, but we fit into a puzzle. So the pieces of us make up each one of us, but we ourselves are parts of a much larger puzzle that Jesus is putting together for the benefit of the world. And so this is actually a little different take on something that we've read many times in Romans 12, verses 3 through 8, where it says, "For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the measure of faith God has given you. Just as each has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same functions, so in Christ we, who are many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given us. If a man's gift is prophesying, let him use it in proportion to his faith. If it is serving, let him serve. If it is teaching, let him teach. If it is encouraging, let him encourage. If it's contributing to the needs of others, let him give generously. If it's leadership, let him govern diligently. If it is showing mercy, let him do that cheerfully." Every piece of the puzzle matters. Verse 3 said, "For the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the measure of faith God has given you." Every piece of the puzzle is vitally important. When one piece is missing, the puzzle can't be complete. So, whatever function, whatever thing it is you do, whatever thing it is that you don't even realize that you're contributing, we're not complete without you. A person that makes the decision not to be involved is actually taking a piece out of God's puzzle. No piece of the puzzle is any more or less important than any other. And the church is the same way. No person here is any more or less important than any other. And you know how many little blue pieces there are in this 1,000-piece box? It's very difficult to, it takes a long time to finally get them to where you know where they all go, because they're all the same color, mostly. But you definitely notice it if one of them's not there, don't you? I mean, some people might not think that they are serving in church, but you are and not even realizing it. Anything you do for Jesus within the church service, everything from, you might be a worship leader, or you might be the guys picking up the chairs after we're done. Everything is absolutely necessary. We all have a function. We are one body, made up of many members, and we don't all have the same functions. Every piece has a different shape. Shape, you could use that, S for spiritual gifts. God gives every believer at least one spiritual gift. Spiritual gifts come only from God and not from our own abilities. And spiritual gifts function to bless the church. H is for heart. There are things that we're passionate about. What lights a fire within you? What gets you started? What are you passionate about, and what can you share of that passion? A would be for abilities. Every person here has an entirely different life experience from anybody else. You've all learned things or done things. You may have learned things the hard way in some cases, but you're here to share it. You can share that experience, or you can share your attitudes, because your attitudes were shaped by things that happened to you during your life, and your life is not like anybody else's here. There's no duplicate. Abilities. Those might not be connected to your spiritual gifts, but a person might have the gift of help. A person might have the gift of being able to nail boards together, to fix cars, to fix watches, to mow lawns and take care of yards. You might have the ability to comfort people and to talk to people easily, whereas somebody else might not. And you could be with that person and help them get over awkward social situations and things. Personality. Our personalities are all different as well, but they complement each other. In this group, we are part of this big puzzle of what this church is. And experience. That gets back to what I was talking about before. We've all learned or done or been through different experiences that can help each other. What would happen if the folks like Bob, Rudy, Dave and Lillian decided not to show up? Well, these chairs wouldn't be sitting here, and the sound system wouldn't be set up. What would happen if none of the worship leaders, if we all decided that we were just lazy, we didn't want to come that particular day, and so we'd all have to sit there and hum to ourselves, I guess. Say, well, what do you want to sing now? You know what I mean? Everybody's got a different job. The pastors, what if they decided not to show up? We'd be kind of rudderless. And if everybody decided to quit tithing or quit contributing to the church, well, we wouldn't have one because we wouldn't be able to pay our bills. So we're all helping each other. So when you're not involved, you impact others. Are you shy? When you keep your spiritual gifts to yourself, you make a negative impact on the church and rob others of being blessed by God. When you serve the church, you bless others. How many times have you been blessed by some small act of kindness? And, being a blessing doesn't have to be something big. It can be all little things that you do for somebody. You may never even know how you've impacted somebody else. Every piece of the puzzle has a place. I think we used to sing a song, though we are many, we are one body. Going back to verse 5 in the scriptural reference that we had. Now, have you ever tried to put a puzzle piece in the wrong place? You can do it. Get a big enough hammer, you can smack that thing in. It doesn't work very well, though. It doesn't look right, and the piece gets damaged, too. So there's a right place and a right fit for every piece. Many times people don't get involved because they just don't know how. When Tony asks for participation in some new idea or project, a lot of times we kind of back off because we just don't see our place in it. We don't see how we're going to be able to contribute. But if we ask Jesus to show what we can't see by human eyes, we might be surprised. And could it be that just getting involved in the conversation with others can kind of bring that out, can bring out the communication both with others and with yourself as to how you might be able to, oh yeah, I think I can do that. Maybe it's not big, but it doesn't have to be big. It's a piece of the puzzle that's necessary. How do we get into the puzzle? Well, the answer is that you didn't put yourself in the puzzle. Trust that God knew exactly where you were going to fit in. Remember that you're important to the church. No matter what you or who you are or what you do, you're important to the life of this church, and there is no way that I can overstress that fact. Realize that you are part of accomplishing God's plan. God has given you special gifts, and He's given you abilities like no one else has that particular ability. And only you can fill that place that God has for you. Let's recognize that God made us all to fill special places in the church. And all of us have been graced by God with different gifts, but the expectation is the same. The gifts that you have are to be used for the benefit of the body. Amen?